If you are dealing with a fear of rejection, or you tend to get rejected very often in your life, then this video is for you. Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. If you're new here, my name is Lorena. I am a self-concept coach and mentor. I'm here to help you to shift into the most aligned, most authentic, most embodied version of yourself so that you can create a reality that is really in alignment with your most authentic heart desires. If you end up liking this video, please do leave a like. Leave a comment if you've got anything to say or share or ask. I really love hearing from you. Also, feel free to share this video with somebody you think can use it. And if you want to dive deeper into my world, or if you want to work with me, then check out the links in the description box below. There's some free resources for you. There's a link to my newsletter, and there's also a link to my coaching program if you want to work with me privately and have me be your guide, your mentor, your cheerleader, your accountability partner, and your biggest supporter. So in today's video, we're going to talk about rejection. And it's actually surprising that I've not created a video on this yet, because I know it's such a big fear of so many people, and it's something that a lot of people have dealt with, and that shows up in romantic relationships, it can show up in friendships, it can show up in career and jobs. And it's been a big part of my journey as well. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about what to do when you get rejected. Let's talk about overcoming the fear of rejection. And to begin, I'm going to connect this kind of to my own story and my own experience so you have some context. Then I'm going to dive a bit deeper into why the fear of rejection is such a big one. And lastly, I'm going to give you some tips, some guidance on how you can work with the fear of rejection, how you can overcome it, essentially, how you can integrate it, how you can heal it, how you can move beyond it. So firstly, I want to say that rejection used to be one of my biggest fears. I used to be so afraid of failing. I used to be so afraid of being abandoned, being left behind, being judged, and most of all, being rejected, because it's not a nice sensation, right? If somebody rejects you or multiple people reject you, especially if it's something or someone you really care about, it hurts. It's difficult to feel that, and it's difficult to hold space for that. So I had a real resistance to rejection, and I know I'm not alone in this, right? Humans are like this. We have an innate need or desire to belong. We want to be loved, we want to be accepted, we want to essentially be part of the tribe. Just from an evolutionary perspective, if we are accepted in the tribe, if we are part of the tribe, we are a lot more likely to survive. So of course, the sensation of rejection, the experience of rejection, brings us into a survival instinct, because subconsciously it sends us the message that we might die. And that's why it can feel so intense when you get rejected. That's why everything in you wants to fight against the rejection, and maybe even resist the rejection or pretends it's not happening. And then, leaving the basic evolutionary perspective aside, there's also an emotional perspective, right? We want to be loved and we want to be accepted, because we all have a need and a desire to be loved, and it feels good and nourishing. And rejection tells us that we're not loved, at least subconsciously. We all want love, we all deserve love, so we try to avoid being rejected. But where it gets problematic is when we lose ourselves in order to avoid rejection, when we lose ourselves in order to receive love and affection and acceptance. And that's very much the place where I used to be. I used to betray myself, I used to abandon myself in order to get accepted by everyone, or by specific people, or in order to be loved by specific people or by everyone who I met. That's how I used to source my self-worth, which is a very backwards thing to do. But I just want to give this for context to say that if this is where you are right now, or this is also where you have been, that you're not alone and that it's a pretty common human experience to have. So why this, however, is problematic is because it doesn't actually meet our needs. If we abandon ourselves, if we betray ourselves in order to be accepted by somebody or something or someone or a group of people, then it's not authentic. And it's not an authentic desire then either. We may think avoiding rejection is what helps us feel more love, what helps us feel loved, and what helps us receive love. But truly, you want to be loved for who you really are and not for who you pretend to be. In order to be loved for who you really are, and not something or somebody else, not a persona that you put on, you need to show up authentically. You need to be yourself. But doing this often doesn't feel safe because it means that if you are to be rejected, then you are actually going to be rejected for who you are. Otherwise, you can kind of fake it. You can kind of put it aside as I pretended to be somebody else anyway. And that is a subconscious process. That's not something that we consciously decide to do, right? It feels a lot safer to be rejected for a persona that you're putting on, an identity that you're stepping into that is not really aligned with who you are or even who you want to be. But it also doesn't fulfill your needs. It also doesn't fulfill your desires. Because what you really want is to be loved for who you are, for your authentic self. Okay, so I'm now going to give you 5 perspective shifts and action steps you can use in order to work with and overcome the fear of rejection. So you can kind of change your perspective on rejection so it's not this big monster over your head anymore that feels so like such a contraction when it happens. So point number 1, accept that not everybody will like you. It's such a funny thing how as humans we think the solution to feeling loved and being loved is to be loved by everybody. But at the end of the day, that is very much impossible. You don't love everybody. You don't like everybody. There's people that get on your nerves. There's people that you don't resonate with. And it doesn't necessarily mean anything about them just because you don't like them. It's just a lack of alignment. It's a misalignment. Back in the day, I used to be very attached to somebody romantically, and being rejected by this person was the worst thing that could have happened to me. That was my biggest fear. Now that I've done all this work, now that I've really integrated all these fears and these difficult emotions, my perspective has completely shifted. I have shared a few times that I'm just getting back out there into the dating world after being single for a while. It feels completely differently because I'm not afraid of rejection anymore. In fact, I welcome the rejection. Because if I put myself out there, I'm going to come across people who don't like me, who don't accept me, who don't find me attractive. However, if I know what I want, if I have clarity on my desire, then that doesn't actually feel like rejection. Because I can promise you, I am not attracted to anybody who isn't attracted to me. I am not attracted to anybody who doesn't want me. And that is a place where I wasn't always at. I used to very much chase unavailable people, but now that's completely unattractive to me. So when somebody rejects me, that doesn't feel like it's a reflection of me anymore. It feels like something I can be grateful for because I'm not wasting my time with somebody who's not for me. So I am now completely okay with being rejected by somebody who's not for me, and the person who is for me will not reject me, otherwise they wouldn't be my person. And I can also give examples or give a reflection of this in the context of work rather than love. The business I run, running a coaching business, is a vulnerable thing to do because my brand is me. I am the product, essentially. I have to really put myself out there and show up authentically. Doesn't mean I have to share everything, but I have to be really authentic and be vulnerable and speak about my failures and my mishaps and my successes very openly, because it's part of the work I do for people. So I have to be authentic. And when I share my truth, when I share my raw emotions, when I share my failures and my successes, there are people that are going to judge me. And I get comments all the time that are hateful, that are spiteful. And mostly these people are just projecting their own insecurities, their own beliefs, their own state of being onto me, and it has nothing to do with me. But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It still hurts to be judged and to be rejected and to be disliked. In the beginning of my business, actually, I used to get death threats. I'm not even kidding. Because people got activated because what I shared wasn't aligned with their beliefs. It was really heavy, especially in the beginning of my business when I didn't have so many clients yet. I didn't have all these testimonials and success stories yet that I do now. Now I can fall back on how much I'm serving and helping people and how much people have changed their lives, transformed themselves, and manifested their desires through my support and through my work. But that wasn't always the case. In the beginning, I didn't have all this proof to pull from. So being hit with all this negativity was tough. But I kept showing up anyway, because I wanted to show up for the people who needed my medicine, and I wanted to show up for the people that I am here to serve. And I am completely okay with being rejected and being disliked by people who are not these people, but who are just random people or people who are not in alignment with me, because they are not my people. I am focusing on the people that I am here to help. I am focusing on you guys that are still watching this. I am not focusing on the people that don't like me or that reject me. I am not wasting my time with that. Doesn't mean mean comments are not gonna hurt, but I'm not making it mean anything about me. And I'm not putting my energy there. The second point, don't settle for less than you desire and deserve. This is a big thing in my work. A big part of my message, a big part of the work I do, what I really bring across with my clients in my coaching program is never to settle. I see a lot of people settling, and often it's an unconscious thing because there is just a subconscious part in them that doesn't really believe they deserve what they actually deserve or what they actually want. So the self-sabotage is kind of hidden. It's not a conscious choice often. Sometimes it is, but very often it's subconscious. But all of this does come back to people pleasing, essentially. All of this does come back to trying to be liked by everybody, which was the previous point. Because when you try to please everybody, then you will have very weak boundaries. Meaning either you don't have any boundaries, you're not clear on what they are, or you don't set them. And by the way, when that's the case, you likely don't accept boundaries from other people either. Being clear on your boundaries and actually stating your needs and being confident to do so is super important. It's important in every part of life, whether that is you running your business or asking for a raise or a promotion at work, or whether that's in a relationship or a friendship. Any part in life, you have to have boundaries with yourself and with others. And when you're not clear on your boundaries or you're not setting them, you are automatically settling because you're just accepting what comes in. I had a client not long ago who had quite a few relationships in her life and marriages even, but she would just take what came in. She would not really have the clarity on what kind of person do I even want to call in. And this is all why having clarity on what you truly want is super important, why it's super important to know who you are and to decide who you are and to step into that identity, and why it's super important to know how to navigate relationships and state your needs and state your boundaries from a confident place. And this is all stuff that I do with my clients when we work together. And the thing with boundaries is also, if you haven't set boundaries before, if this is something new for you, or you've not set them, you've not had your standards be high enough before. When you begin to set boundaries and when you begin to state your needs and people aren't used to that, it's going to feel very uncomfortable for you, and not everybody will accept it. People will likely reject you, but that has nothing to do with you. They will only reject you because you suddenly don't fit into that box anymore of the identity that they have created for you. So if you want to change your self-concept, if you want to break out of the identity that people have of you, having standards, having boundaries, and stating your boundaries and stating your needs and setting them internally and externally is super important, but it's going to be an uncomfortable process. When people don't accept your needs, your standards, your boundaries, either they will shift eventually and they will come with you and they will begin to accept your needs and your boundaries and your standards, or they may reject you. And if that is the case, take that as a redirection. Take that as something to be grateful for because you dodged a bullet. The third point is a little bit of a perspective shift, and it's probably the most important message of this video. And that is that you cannot actually be rejected by anybody. Nobody can reject you. When you are rejected by somebody and it impacts you, what is actually happening is that there is a part of you and in you that you are rejecting yourself. For someone else to be able to reject you, you have to agree with them, at least on some level. You have to agree that there's a part of you that is worth being rejected. So are you choosing to accept the rejection when somebody rejects you? Or do you just choose to not give it any further meaning and take it as a projection from them, a reflection of them, rather than a reflection of you? People always think more about themselves than they think about other people. They consider themselves the most, but we're all selfish. Let's take the example of going to the gym and being self-conscious about it. If you're self-conscious at the gym, nobody there cares what you look like or what you do. Nobody. Because everybody is just there for themselves. Everybody just thinks about themselves and how they look and what they do and what other people think about them. So when somebody rejects you, it's because of something in them, not something in you. If that rejection impacts you on a deep level, it's because you reject that part in yourself as well. So essentially, only you can really reject yourself. Number 4. All this means the rejection doesn't actually mean anything about you. And that is a question that I would really encourage you to ask yourself when you are rejected, when you are judged, when somebody says a mean thing about you, when you are not receiving what you want from another person. What are you making that mean about yourself? Most people take rejection really personally and make it mean something about themselves. I very much used to do this. And I gave the example earlier of how I used to date versus how I date now. Because now, not only do I see rejection as something positive, because it is somebody gone who wasn't in alignment with me, who wasn't a match for me, but I used to take this really personally. When somebody would reject me, even if that was somebody I wasn't really interested in, I would make that mean that I am not good enough, that I am not beautiful enough, that I am not worthy of love. Very much subconscious processes, because on a conscious level, we can know that that's not true, but the subconscious mind is a different story. However, now if somebody rejects me, especially if that is somebody that I'm not truly interested in, but even if it is somebody that I'm truly interested in, I know that's not a reflection of me. I know that has nothing to do with me. That has to do with another person's perception of me, but it doesn't define who I am. And what often creates this interpretation goes hand in hand with your attachment style in relationships, but this also applies to other areas of life, right? Our attachment styles are not just valid in relationships, romantic or otherwise, but we also have our attachment styles show up with money, with work, with clients, with our boss, whatever your situation is. However a rejection impacts you will likely have to do with your attachment style as well. Let's say you have more of an anxious attachment style, you will probably make a rejection mean something negative about you and that you're not good enough or that you're not worthy of love or something like this, or of success or money or whatever it is. If you have more of avoidant tendencies, you can, instead of making it mean something about you, you can often deflect and make it mean something about other people or fall into blame. So if somebody rejects you, you could say, I wasn't interested in them anyway, or they're a bad person anyway, or I didn't even really want this. So you can deny yourself what your true feelings are because it's too uncomfortable to feel the rejection itself. It doesn't mean anything about you, but it needs to be felt. And the number one tip, that's point number 5, that I can give you today, how to really overcome the fear of rejection and how to deal with rejection, is to practice getting rejected. I know this is probably not what people want to hear, but as with anything, in order to be able to tolerate something, we need to stretch ourselves. We need to sit with discomfort. And if you want to stop caring about being rejected, if you want to stop giving other people so much power over you, you need to practice getting rejected. There's a really good TED Talk. I'm gonna link it below because it's here on YouTube, from a guy who did as an experiment 100 days of rejection. So he really practiced getting rejected every day. And it's a great TED Talk because you can really see how over time the rejection mattered less to him. And also sometimes he would get surprised that people wouldn't reject him and they would say yes to things that he thought they would definitely say no to. Because that's another thing. If we fear rejection, you're not going to put yourself out there and you're not going to claim the things you really want. You're not going to go for the things you really want because the fear of what happens if you don't get that is too big. But if you lose that fear, if you can embrace and welcome rejection, then you can also go for the things you really want and you're much more likely to actually make them happen. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave me a little comment and let me know what your key takeaway is. If you have any reflections or experiences that you'd like to share, I always love hearing your perspectives and hearing your experiences in the comments. And also know that overcoming the fear of rejection and working through your own personal process, your own personal emotional experience and subconscious beliefs is something that we can do together when we work together. So if you want to join my coaching program, the next intake of it, you can find the link in the description box below, because I would really love to support you through your process and support you in changing your self-concept and manifesting the things that you truly desire, and doing so from a really embodied and integrated place. And if you have any questions about it before you join or before you apply, then feel free to send me a message on Instagram and I'll be happy to help as well. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like the video if you did like it, and I'll see you in the next one.